Life often has a way of throwing challenges at us that seem insurmountable. Problems come uninvited, and their weight can feel unbearable. In those moments, it is easy to let our focus settle on the problem itself, letting it consume our thoughts, drain our strength, and strip away our peace. But today, let me remind you, as a spirit-filled believer in the Lord, that the answer to overcoming the weight of any problem lies not in magnifying the problem but in shifting your focus to the one who is greater than any problem, our mighty and loving God. Let me tell you a story. There was once a woman who came to church in tears. Her life was falling apart. Her husband had left her, her children were drifting away, and her finances were in ruins. She sat quietly in the back, feeling hopeless. When the time came for prayer, she hesitated. Her heart was heavy, and her faith felt weak. But as the pastor began to read from Matthew chapter 11 verses 28 to 30, she felt a stirring within her spirit. The words, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," felt as though they were spoken directly to her. In that moment, something shifted. She realized that she had been focusing on everything going wrong, but not on the one who promised to make everything right. Her tears did not stop that day, but they became tears of release and surrender. She walked out of that service not with her problems solved, but with her heart assured that God was with her, working behind the scenes in ways she could not see. And friends, that same assurance is available to you today. The Bible is filled with stories of people who chose to shift their focus from the problem to the promises of God. Think about Peter walking on water in Matthew chapter 14 verses 22 to 33. Peter stepped out of the boat with bold faith, but as soon as he took his eyes off Jesus and focused on the wind and the waves, he began to sink. Yet even in his sinking, he cried out, "Lord, save me." And Jesus immediately reached out and caught him. What an assurance we have that even when our focus falters, God's hand remains steadfast. Brothers and sisters, problems are inevitable, but how you respond to them is a choice. You can either let the problem dictate your emotions, or you can trust in God's assurances. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verses 17 to 18, Paul writes, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." This passage reminds us that our problems are temporary, but God's promises are eternal. Do not let a temporary storm make you lose sight of the eternal calm that God has already prepared for you. A dear friend of mine once shared how he faced a devastating loss in his business. He had poured his heart and soul into his work, only to see it crumble overnight due to an economic downturn. He told me how he would lie awake at night, replaying the failure over and over in his mind. Then one evening, during his prayer time, he came across Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10, where God says, "Do not fear, for I am with you, do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Those words became his lifeline. Instead of focusing on what he had lost, he began to focus on the God who promised to restore. And restore, God did, better than my friend could have imagined. You see, God does not just ask us to rely on him without reason. He backs his assurances with his character. He is faithful, he is powerful, he is loving. In Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11, he declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." These are not empty words, they are the foundation upon which you can build your faith. When you feel overwhelmed, remind yourself of God's promises, because his word will never return void. There is a song I often sing when the weight of life feels too heavy. The lyrics say, "Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace." This song captures the essence of shifting your focus. When you look to Jesus, the light of his presence overshadows even the darkest of problems. Do not underestimate the power of praise during trials. When you choose to praise God in the middle of your storm, you shift your focus from the problem to the promise. In Acts chapter 16 verses 25 to 26, Paul and Silas were in prison, beaten and chained. Instead of wallowing in despair, they prayed and sang hymns to God. And what happened? An earthquake shook the prison, and their chains fell off. Your praise has the power to break chains, not because of the sound of your voice, but because of the one you are praising. I encourage you today to lay your burdens at the feet of Jesus. Picture yourself handing over your worries, fears, and doubts to Him. He does not promise a life without problems, but He does promise peace in the midst of them. In John chapter 16 verse 33, Jesus says, "In this world you will have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world." That is the assurance you can hold on to. The victory has already been won. Let me close with this final thought. Shifting your focus away from the problem does not mean ignoring it. It means trusting that the God who created the heavens and the earth is more than able to handle what you cannot. It means believing that He is working all things together for your good, as Romans chapter 8 verse 28 tells us. It means resting in the truth that His plans for you are good, His power is unmatched, and His love is unchanging. So today, whatever you are facing, whether it is a mountain that seems too high to climb or a valley that feels too dark to walk through, shift your focus. Lift your eyes to the one who holds the universe in His hands, yet cares intimately about every detail of your life. Surrender your problems to Him and rely on His assurances. He will not fail you. He never has, and He never will. Trust Him, for He is faithful.